Well, howdy. Today I want to talk to you about growing vegetables in a closet. And I want to go over what you need to do to set it up. This is a drip irrigation system. I will cover it in another video because it's kind of long. But let's talk about just a closet. You have a closet. This is a wardrobe closet. It's 2x8. What you're going to need is, first of all, you need air circulation. So I have a tower fan here that oscillates back and forth and blows air across the plants. And this thing here that's showing is a trellis, and I made it floating because I'm going to grow tomatoes in here and they could get tall. So when they do, I'll just put the branches through the netting. Now you may not need this, and I may not even need it. I'm probably going to grow bush tomatoes in here. But generally when you're growing plants, if you can spread them out, they'll get more light. And so you need air coming in. You have to have ventilation in here. And it can come in passively, like under a door, or you can keep a door slightly cracked open. But you need to get fresh air in here because plants need CO2 to grow. If your closet doesn't get fresh air, they'll use up all the CO2 inside your closet, and then they'll stop growing. So it's important to have air coming in. And the other thing that's important, you need to have an exhaust fan. You absolutely need this. Now this one is hooked up to a carbon filter. If you're growing vegetables, you don't need the filter, but you do need the fan. Now the fan will pull out the hot air and the extra humidity that the plants make and make your closet climate under control. I also have in here, and again, I just like to have it. I want to know what the temperature and the humidity is, but this just measures the air temperature and humidity. And really, when you have plants in here, it's the leaf surface temperature that you want to know. And for that, you just use one of these cheap $20 heat guns that you can buy on Amazon. And because you're going to have to light it in here, I don't know if they're going to show up because a lot of times my camera blacks them out. I have two LEDs in here. This one on this end is an HLG 300. It puts out about 280 watts. This one over here is a bigger light that I had, and it's a HLG 600. It puts out 580 something watts. It is dimmed down to half power because it technically could light this whole closet, but the problem is as you get further away from the lighting drops. So even though it's got plenty of light, it's limited in the amount of area it can cover. So in a closet like this, which is 2 feet wide, the width isn't a problem, but it's 8 feet long, and you can't cover that with one light. So you need two. But then again, you might have a smaller closet. I would say if you're going to grow in a closet, you probably want to grow, well, it's no telling. You could be growing anything, but I would do tomatoes and peppers in here because they need a lot of light. That doesn't mean you couldn't put some lettuce in down lower, because light levels change. The further you get from an LED light, the lower the amount of light is. So you can have your high light plants up higher, or they grow up higher, and a low light plant like lettuce can be down lower. It's real important that you have an exhaust fan. Now, if you live in an apartment like I do, you probably don't want to cut a hole in your wall. It's not critical that it goes through an attic or, down into a crawl space. You can exhaust it right out into your house, and it'll give you some extra heat in the wintertime. Just, hang it up and put the exhaust end slightly outside your door. Leave your door open a crack, and you'll be good to go. But you do definitely need exhaust. The intake, the fan's going to pull air, so fresh air is going to come in through the bottom or wherever it can get through, and then you need the warm, humid air to be exhausted out. And you can exhaust it out into your apartment. If you're in a house, you can cut a hole in the wall to vent it outside, or into a crawl space, or into an attic. But most people are not going to want to cut a hole in their wall. The lights, they run on a timer, and I run my lights for 12 hours. 12 hours on, 12 hours off. It doesn't matter what time they go on. It doesn't matter what time they go off. I just want to make sure they have at least 12 hours. Now, you can run them longer. I'm an old cannabis grower, so 12 hours is what you use for flower. 18 hours is what you use for veg, but you can grow with just 12 hours and it'll save you some electricity. Pretty much, it's a basic setup, really. Now I do a top feed drip, and I have these dripper lines here. The system is off right now, and I'll cover it later. You can set up drip irrigation for your vegetables, or you can grow them in pots, but you're gonna need some kind of a tray to catch them in. I have, these were 40-gallon totes, and I cut them down because they were kind of tall, and I didn't want them to be that tall. So I just cut them down with a razor knife and smoothed them out. And anyway, so whatever you use, it can be any size tub or tote. And depending on the size of your closet, it might only be one, or it might be two. I have this waffle grid that I put in underneath my plants, and the reason for that is that most of these totes have a flat bottom, which means it doesn't drain that well, and you don't want your plants sitting in water after you've watered them. Now, this particular system is a recirculating system. The water comes out through this manifold, goes to the pots. I don't know if you can see it, but down here there's a drain, and it drains into my reservoir. Now, I have a reservoir underneath. It's covered up right now, but there's a pump in the reservoir, and that's where the water is, and I recirculate. You can recirculate nutrients. You have to stay on top of them and, keep it topped up. You can, or you can hand water. It's really your choice. But plants do better when they're watered consistently at a set time every day. They're just like people. They get habitual, and they expect their food and their water, and they do better when they get it every whatever. In here, I am running grow stones, and this is a hydroponic medium. You can run soil, you can run cocoa, and you can run grow stones or hydroton. It really those will require frequent watering. Cocoa or a soil mix, not so much. And in that case, you can use drip irrigation for them, but you'll want to make sure you can find a way, especially if you're doing drip irrigation, to keep them from getting out of the pots. And the way I do that, the easy way to do that, is to grow in fabric pots. And that way everything is inside the pot, and plants do really well in them. Or the other option is you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot, and you can buy 1-gallon paint strainer bags, and they will keep everything in, and you just line your pot with them. So those are the two ways. If you're just going to water your pots and they're going to sit in a saucer or they're going to sit in the tray, you're going to need to remove the extra water from the tray. I drain it off. Some people go in with a shop vac and vacuum it out, but you don't want standing water in the trays. It'll grow algae. It will not be good for your plants. They need moisture, but they also need to get air, and if the roots are submerged in water, they're not getting air. So main thing for here, the most expensive thing is gonna be your lights, and you need good lights. Now, I'm not gonna tell you to go out and buy HLG lights. They're probably the best money can buy, but they're expensive. And you know, when you're growing a high value crop like cannabis, you can afford to spend more money on a light. But if you're growing lettuce, you can find a good light for your vegetables for a lot less money. And I am awaiting a Spider Farmer 2000, which I'm going to be testing in one of my hydroponic grows, and you'll get a review of it. And that's probably what I'd recommend for most of you. And that's really the most important thing. You're going to need light in a closet. I mean, let's face it. You don't have a window. You don't have any, and a window's really not enough anyway, but you need to be able to get light in there. You need, for high light plants like tomatoes, about 30 watts per square foot will do it. 30-35. Now, important to note, when you buy LEDs, that's watts at the wall. A lot of manufacturers, they give you a number and it's not accurate. So whatever LED you buy, you need to check the specs and see how many watts it pulls from the wall. And then figure out your square footage, multiply it by 30 or 35. That's how much light you're going to need if it's full on. If you buy a bigger one and it has a dimmer, you can turn it down like the one on the other side of this closet. So that's pretty much what you need to do to grow vegetables in a closet, or really anything in a closet. I started out growing cannabis, and I'm a medical marijuana patient, but I'm looking, as I get more and more into growing vegetables indoors, I'm looking at changing over some of my stuff to grow hydroponic vegetables, and I really like hydroponic over conventional, just because the plants grow faster, they're easier to control. With soil, you don't know what's in it. If you put too much of something in, you can't get it out. And if you don't put enough of something in, it's hard to bring it up to a level that the plants need before the plants are done. So, to me, hydroponic is the way to go. And that means usually, now cocoa is considered a hydroponic medium by some, but soil is a whole different animal. I have no experience growing in soil, don't care to. I've grown in cocoa, and if you're going to do cocoa, it holds water really well, so you won't need to water it as much. And also the thing about cocoa, you can use half the pot size that you would need if you were using soil. These pots here are probably 2-gallon, 2.5 gallon, and actually they're overkill for most vegetables. But what I do, I start my vegetables in cocoa. I use a small pot or a solo cup, start them in there. When the roots are coming out the bottom, it's time to transplant them. I put them in the grow stones and I start to drip irrigate them. And from there, they start to take off. So if you want to grow vegetables and you have a closet, you can definitely do it. It's a bit more work, but the plus is they're out of sight, out of mind, so to speak. You know, you don't have these really bright lights shining out in your living room. You can close the door or leave it a crack open, and you get really good environmental control as opposed to just what's going on in your whole apartment or house. So if you have a closet and you're not using it and you're looking for a place to grow vegetables, that's a good place to do it. All right, well listen, take care, happy gardening, keep it green.